Good morning, everyone. This is Anthony, Wall Street Trader. It is 10:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, June 10th, 2021. This is not financial advice. The video is intended for educational purposes only. Twitter.com link below if you'd like to. It's in the description where you can, if you click on it, you'll get my intraday updates and major market movements in between the videos that I put out. If you want to know when these videos come out as well, you can click the subscribe button below and stay up to date with the latest videos, as well as the other content on the other cryptos I cover. Here's the graph allocation. I am 100% in. I have no more risk capital I want to put into this thing. I'm at 81 cents. That's my dollar cost average of getting in. Now I have to wait. I'm buckled in. I'm strapped. So we're going to look at the potential exit points. The potential exit points are what? Nothing. Why? Because I firmly believe in the graph right now. I have no, reason for myself to start de-risking anything here. I feel like we're at a good part, in terms of not only the story behind the graph, which is more so why I'm in for the long term, but also even on the technicals. Let's just take a look. Right now, we're kind of like looking at a basing pattern here over this 65-cent mark, right? What was once resistance back down a while ago is now support in current day. So we have to see how this plays out. Back in January, we hit our head a couple of times and bounced up. We're bouncing down back on top of this line. So now this yellow line is support and has been support. So we have to see this play out. But again, the underlying factors remain. What are the underlying factors? We all know this. We all know this equation. Bitcoin, unfortunately, folks, it's around to stay. It does influence the direction of the graph one way or the other. It may not be directly correlated 100% of the time at a specific spread. The spread is really this guy right here, which is the graph relative to Bitcoin. And this changes too. It's the inner strength of the graph. So looking at Bitcoin and looking at GRTBTC, let's take a look at each of these things in isolation and then come up with our opinion at the end. So here I'm bullish on the output. Now let's look at the inner drivers. One is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up markedly since yesterday. We're 37.2. Let's see where we were at a high. We had hit over 38.4. So we're actually really in a bullish trend. Now, a couple things on the macro side, which we'll go into in a second. But before we get into more of the Bitcoin, why I think we're going to continue our onward and upward is here. Now, we have to be careful with this part. This is the graph relative to Bitcoin. We have seen this go down. Now, right now, where I see the bottoming is around 1750 in that range. We're at 1848 right now. We should get back in this channel. I'd like to see us quickly recover from this. And people might ask, why are we so down when Bitcoin's so up? And you know what? That's the problem, right? So when you have a very bullish price action on Bitcoin, it tends to leave the altcoins in the dust when it comes to their relative pair to Bitcoin. So looking at the equation here, we can see that the graph relative to Bitcoin, right? What will happen is Bitcoin, which is the denominator, may go up so much that the graph itself, its inner strength, doesn't catch up as quickly. So this number up here may stagnate, and this number here may explode to the upside. And so what happens is it leaves this component in the dust, meaning it goes down when this guy goes up. But again, it all has to do with the velocity. It doesn't necessarily mean that when Bitcoin goes up, GRTBTC goes down. It just means that when Bitcoin goes up very fast, and I mean very fast, it tends to offset and create a negative impact on this currency pair. And it's okay because it's typically short-lived. And when Bitcoin consolidates, as with the last time, GRT BTC will rally. So that's what I'm expecting. So going back into the market here, I feel like 1750 is the low. And let's zoom out and just so everyone has a very clear picture of where we're at, we're kind of right around here. And if you drew this line all the way back, we'd also see that back here, it was sort of a resistance area. Now let's go into the big macro reasons with Bitcoin so everyone's very clear. JP Morgan sees a signal of a coming bear market. They're comparing the current day environment with what's been going on in 2018 due to some backwardation in the futures market. So it doesn't really matter what they mean, but like what backwardation means. It has to do with a type of futures price action. It doesn't really matter here because I think that what has happened recently is a very different picture than what has happened in the past. Let's understand that Bitcoin is in a different zone right now. We're talking country adoption, state adoption, and beyond. So I can't even compare the two. I don't think that they're comparable spots. So my view is we're still going up. I don't think that this is a bearish outcome. It may be a bearish signal for them, but that's all it is a signal. It doesn't mean that that happens. So Thomas Lee, who worked at JP Morgan, also came out saying that, the confirmation. And by the way, Thomas Lee is the head of FundStrat, which is a research company. And by the way, Tom used to work as the head of research over JP Morgan. And Tom is now coming out saying that, he believes that the bottom's already has been in for Bitcoin. Let's move forward and look at what's going on. Bank regulators plot toughest capital rule for Bitcoin. Okay, well, big whoop-de-doo. They're actually considering it as they have to basically say that to all the banks, Basel is a regulatory framework. They work with all the all the local regulators, one in the U.S., the FSA in London, and all sorts of other countries. And they basically say if you're going to be working with Bitcoin or crypto assets, you need to, it's a higher capital charge because it's a risky asset, and that's fine. Because why? Because they're treating it as a universal asset now, right? They're coming up with requirements around it, further legitimizing the existence of Bitcoin. And that's very, very big and very compelling. And people need to understand that regulation is actually big. We have more regulation than anything in the stock market, and yet trillions are pouring into that thing. So let's be very clear. Also, India may move to classify Bitcoin as an asset class, where at one point in time they were totally against it. Now suddenly they're opening up their minds. And by the way, for the U.S., for the Americans looking at this thing, 10-6 is really June 10th. It's just flipped. But point being here is that, this is a huge deal in that once India was against Bitcoin and now they are starting to completely do a 180 on this thing. So we got to see how this plays out. This is really the most interesting story of the day, as well as the whole Basel banking regulatory framework that we just saw earlier over here. So those two are much more worldly types of impacts to Bitcoin that I'm going to be closely monitoring, and I'll keep everyone updated on that. Right now, Bitcoin's around close to 37,000. We're going to see this thing play out. Look, it's going to be choppy. I'm not expecting anything massive on the downside or massive on the upside. I think we just need to have some consolidation here. Anyway, I'm out. Hope everyone's got a good Friday Eve going on. Anyway, talk soon.